Hello and welcome to the Warframe tier list. Today we'll be going over Kullervo, and first things first, let's go into the builds. With Kullervo, I have one main build, which is a Nourish build, and Nourish is nice on Kullervo, as it gives you free viral damage on your weapons, which is very nice for the loadout I'm using. And since you don't have shields, you will always be proccing the explosion damage, spreading viral and an AoE around you. The energy multiplier that Nourish provides is also very beneficial on Kullervo, as his innate energy economy is not that great. Speaking of Helmuth abilities, you can either choose to subsume over his first ability, Wrathful Advance, as this ability is good on paper, giving you a flat melee crit chance buff, but in practice, melee still isn't that good outside of niche scenarios such as the Exodia Contagion builds, such as the one I ran on Inaros, or just the Glaive Prime, but the Glaive Prime doesn't need this flat crit chance buff to kill enemies unless you're doing a level cap run, and even then, the Glaive can kill level cap in just a couple throws. Instead, however, the build I was using with the Zenistar does really like the flat crit chance buff. If you do not care about the flat crit chance buff, and you need a different way to heal yourself, you can choose to subsume over it and keep Recompense. This gives you access to an innate heal, and it is getting buffed soon, as the Overguard cap will be increased based on your strength, and you'll have a 0.25 second invulnerability period whenever your Overguard runs out. In my opinion, though, that is not enough to make this ability worth using, as it has a cast time and it is pretty expensive. So even after the buff, unless they do more than what they said in the dev stream, I do think that this ability will still be very, very bad. So this is a Mecha Bond build using a Vizier Predacite. If you do not like using Mecha mods, you can instead just drop the aura and drop the mecha mod, such as this. In the aura slot, you can either use Steel Charge for more melee damage, or you can run Energy Siphon for extra energy sustain, Enemy Radar for quality of life, or Growing Power. Growing Power isn't the most useful, however, as your third ability, which is the best ability in this kit, stops scaling at 200% ability strength. So Growing Power does nothing unless you drop something like Molt Augmented or Moderai, but then you'll have to supplement some of the strength back with something like Archon Shards or Augur Secrets, and running something like Augur Secrets is a bit of a throw. You could run Transient Fortitude, but I found that the duration that you lose for his fourth ability to be very annoying. What I would suggest in the final mod slot here is just something simple like Carnus Carapace for 60% armor and 90% health, or Nearest Hatred for 150% health and 15% ability duration. Lastly, you could also just throw on Primed Vigor. I do not have Primed Vigor, but Primed Vigor I believe gives 220% max health, being the most tanky of these three mods that you could put here. The benefit of the mecha set is with, first of all, it applies in 30-meter wide AoE nuke once every 15 seconds. And that does increase your KPM, and with Mecha Pulse, it does increase your survivability. However, in a group setting, whoever kills the marked target gets the buff, so it doesn't always get applied to you. But if you're in a group, you're probably fine not getting every single mecha buff, as just enemy attention will be diverted away from you, so it'll increase your survivability that way. But the Panzer will give you access to Martyr Symbiosis, where the cat will sacrifice itself to save you. So it's kind of like kill negating. I don't know. They both have their benefits. Try both. Use whichever one you like. As for the weapon loadouts I was using a Paris Prime to kill Acolytes mostly, but I kind of stopped in the later runs. I was using it as it has an Exilus mod that heals you, and I just wanted a way to heal myself while fighting Acolytes outside of pressing a second ability. Though I later came to the conclusion that you should just run something like the Brahma or the Miter or the Tenet Envoy or the Latron with their Incarnate forms, just to kill the Acolyte quicker and without needing to set up for it. As for the secondary, I was using a Furus, and this was the star of the show outside of his abilities, to keep myself healed and to actually kill the tankier enemies. Winds of Purity gives you 20% lifesteal. This also heals your companions, by the way. And I was running Raw Heat, getting Viral plus Heat thanks to Nourish. This Riven is a punch-through mod supplement, And without the Riven, you would run Seeker instead. I would highly suggest getting a Furious Riven and rolling it for something either with Punch Through, as any Riven with Punch Through is immediately better than Seeker, or you could just roll to replace one of these other mods and just get a Riven and then put on Seeker over whatever you replaced it with. As to the melee, I was using the Zenistar, as Kullervo's abilities build up to 12x combo for him, meaning that you can do a 12x combo heavy with the Zenistar without having to set up for it yourself, which is very nice. I was running it with gas, and that means it was spreading gas plus viral, again thanks to Nourish, and killing enemies occasionally, not much, but occasionally. With his first ability, Wrathful Advance, giving this thing flat crit chance, I also opted to run Organ Shatter in one of the final slots to buff its damage a little bit. Normally with the Zenistar, it is a pain to upkeep, but thanks to you always being 12x combo, it is actually really comfortable, and it does boost your KPM a bit. If you can't be bothered, then you can just choose to use a normal melee weapon. As to the focus schools, I was using Madurai for the 40% ability strength and 50% casting speed. Again, if you do not want to use Madurai, you could replace some of these stats that you need with Archon Shards. Just make sure that you get to the 200% strength threshold that is required to cap out his third ability. Other focus schools that are nice are Yunaru for the 208 armor, which isn't that good in this case, and Poise for access to Prime Surefooted. That is very good. If you don't have Prime Surefooted, Yunaru is amazing. The third focus school you could use is Vazarin for Protective Sling to give yourself some iframes, and also access to a heal. Last but not least are the companions. This was the Vizier set. This is the Vizier mod loadout I was using for the mecha mods. And this was the Panzer I was using for the non-mecha build. Oop, misclick. Now, moving on to the rankings, we're discussing Kullervo in relation to 4 separate topics. Firstly is KPM, secondly is Survivability, thirdly is Viability, and finally how fun he is to play. All of this data is sampled from a 1-hour solo Steel Path mod run with no Specters, no on-call, and of course, no Archon Shards. Now let's begin with the first topic, Kullervo's KPM. Kullervo has incredibly high KPM thanks to his third ability, Collective Curse, which applies a debuff on a group of enemies, and a conal that is affected by line of sight, unfortunately, that redirects all damage that you deal to any of them to all other enemies. This means that if you hit 5 of them with an AoE, you will be dealing 5 times 5 damage to every single enemy. This is really strong, especially paired with his fourth ability, Storm of Echo, which is just an AoE rain of daggers that deals slash damage and does apply the slash status effect. His fourth ability can just outright kill enemies even up to level 400 as long as you're applying viral to them. But paired with Collective Curse, the enemies just get absolutely deleted. His third ability is really strong even for going a gun or melee build, buffing your damage exponentially. Especially paired with Nourish, which again just goes very well with him. And the Zenistar also synergizes nice with his kit, as you can give the Zenistar flat crit chance, although the Zenistar's crit damage is also only 1.0, it still makes the heavy attack disc able to kill enemies. Again, especially with Nourish and with everything else in his kit. In all of these runs, I was getting pretty consistently 130 plus KPM. The lowest I got was about basically 100 flat, but the tiles that I was in was actually god awful. And the highest I got was roughly 180 after 30 minutes. If you are in the absolute best case scenario as Kullervo, you can get incredibly high KPM, but on average, you're getting about 130. Even without Rivens, I did a couple complete Rivenless runs, I was still getting on average 130 KPM, and again, the peaks were about 140 to 150, pretty consistently, outside of the one run where I got like 180. This puts him very high up on the KPM scale, especially since he can theoretically scale his damage, he just can't scale his survivability, so I will give him a flat S rank for his KPM. Now moving on to the second topic, his survivability, and a lot of people have expressed their concerns over Kullervo's survivability, but I will just say it, his survivability is, for the most part, fine. Do I wish it was better? Yes, but people are over-exaggerating saying that he can't do Steel Path, and, well, you're seeing the footage, he clearly can. And the longest run I did was a 2-hour solo mot run, again with no specters, no on-call, no shards, etc. And I died 4 times. 3 of the times were to Blitz Eximus, which if you're playing any health tank build, regardless of the Warframe, you will randomly die to Blitz Eximus that late into a run. And the final death was to a Toxic Ancient that just killed me, and that was entirely a learn to play issue, as earlier in the run there was another Toxic Ancient and it hit me for like only 500 damage. So when the second one came around, I didn't really think much of it, and then he just one-shot me. So if I played that back now, knowing that it would kill me, I wouldn't have died to that second Toxic Ancient. So his survivability for the most part is fine. It is worse than Inaros's, just statistically. I know a lot of people are trying to argue that Kullervo has better survivability than Inaros just because his kit allows him to kill more enemies. And that's honestly not very true. If you go back and watch my Inaros video, I was getting the exact same KPM on Inaros as I was on Kullervo. It was just pigeonholed into one specific weapon loadout, that being Exodia Contagion, and not really being able to flex it out without dropping KPM. Nowadays you would be able to though, however, thanks to the new Incarnate weapons that are also able to get 130 plus KPM, such as the Miter and the Latron. So, to be fair, I will just give Kullervo a 1 rank lower survivability rank than I gave Inaros, and I gave Inaros a B+, so I will give Kullervo a B rank for his survivability. It's actually pretty decent. I do wish it was slightly better. People are over-exaggerating. Now moving on to the third topic, his overall viability, and his viability is honestly pretty average. He doesn't really stick out anywhere outside of survival, where in the proper tile set you can get incredibly high KPM like I previously mentioned. But in other game modes he's honestly pretty average. He's not really special anywhere. Disruption, he doesn't really do anything like normal captures, rescues, spies, etc. He's just whatever. Exterminates, he could be pretty good, but even there, you would be better off just running like a dedicated nuke frame, like Volt, Titania, or Mirage. But he would be better than the average gun frame in an Exterminate at least. So he's pretty much average, maybe very slightly above average in everyday missions. He has potential to be amazing in survival, and just everywhere else he's average. So I would just give him an average rank, maybe slightly higher, of a B+ rank for his overall viability. Now moving on to the final topic, is he fun? And honestly, in my opinion, Kullervo is incredibly fun. And for those of you who have been watching my videos for a while, this may come as a shock as he's a health tank, and I've expressed in the past for most health tanks that I've played that I find them pretty boring. However, it's not because they're health tanks that I dislike them. The reason I dislike most health tanks on Warframe is because you're not really playing the game. You just sit there and you shoot your gun, or you shoot Exodia Contagion or whatever, but on Kullervo, he plays more similarly to a caster / shield gate playstyle, where you are constantly spamming your abilities and upkeeping your abilities and actually utilizing your kit. Most health tanks on this game, it boils down to you sit there, like I'll use Chroma as an example, you press Vex Armor, press Elemental Ward, you shoot gun. Like, it's just boring. With Kullervo, you're actively running around, pressing your abilities, upkeeping all of your abilities. Like, it just feels more like you're playing a game rather than, I don't even know. On top of that, the sound effects that his third ability has, like, it sounds like the chain link clink whenever you activate his third ability. It's so satisfying. I absolutely love using that ability. The visuals are great. I don't know. I really find Kullervo fun. I will give him an S- rank for his fun. In conclusion, Kullervo is an A-tier Warframe who rewards an active playstyle and is very satisfying and fun to play.